Welcome to episode 1 of Chasing Earth. We are your hosts, Rain Morris
and Victoria Cager.
So today we have a very special guest, Dr. Beverly Wright. But before we get into that, we want to talk about our own experiences and who we are.
But before we do that, we'd like to introduce our handy dandy cameraman, right? Yeah, clap it up, yeah. Say your name.
Hello. I'm Kevon Porter. I'm the man behind the camera, and I'm the lovely, video and audio designer for this little podcast here. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
He's with all the tech, he gets a little slack because he's behind the camera, but we love him because he goes hard with the tech.
Amen.
So Victoria,
Rain,
tell me about your experience, or how did you first start learning about this organization?
So I learned about this organization because one day when I was a junior, my auntie had sent me the flyer in the mail. And, I've always been a humanities and an English person my whole life. And I kind of just wanted to challenge my areas of expertise and kind of, get into the STEM field a little bit. And so this is my second year in the internship, and I really, really love it, y'all. I'm having a great time. I've learned so much about the environment, and this internship has encouraged me to pursue environmental studies for my major in college. So, yeah, I'm having really great experience. What about you, Rain?
So I first learned about this August of this 12th grade senior year school year. They posted like a flyer in my Google Classroom for my assignments, and on there they had the name and like the money. I was like, okay, maybe this is it'll be good on my college resume, I guess, for my school. And so when I came here, I really enjoyed my experience. I'm glad I met the people I met. It kind of opens my eye and my view to the changes and around us in our community and how serious it can be and how people just kind of brush over it. One of the stories that stood out to me was Mr. Robert Taylor. When we interviewed him, and he was just saying, like, basically they have a lot of toxic waste where he was, and just a lot of people in his family were dying because of this. And he reached out to government officials, and nobody cared. Everybody overlooked him, and it was crazy. So
yeah,
like I said in the beginning, guys, there's a special interview with Dr. Beverly Wright. She's an advocate, and a leader for environmental change. So let's go to her office. Today we have Dr. Beverly Wright. Dr. Beverly Wright, would you like to introduce yourself to the camera?
So I'm Dr. Beverly Wright. I am the founding director of the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm actually thrilled to be here with our young students who are actually working with our communities, learning everything about toxics and the health risk and the dangers that we live with here in what we call Cancer Alley, and climate change. So happy to be joining them on today.
So you've been involved in this environmental and climate change work for the past 40 years, and we were just wondering, how did you get involved in this work?
So I went to Grambling State University. I'm from New Orleans. And at Grambling, I met a lot of young people who were so different from me. They were rural kids who worked on farms. And one of the things that happened while I was in graduate school is that I met Dr. Adeline Levine. She's my major professor who worked with me on my PhD. Have you all heard of Love Canal?
No.
So Love Canal was the first community to actually present to our attention industrial poisoning. There was an all-white community that worked, and all the people in that community worked at one particular industrial facility. And while working there, once you worked there for a certain period of time, your skin began to turn a bit yellowish. So people always knew that you worked at that facility by looking at your skin color. But what they did know is that it was very poisonous, and it was creating large numbers of cancer, leukemia in particular, in children. And so the community began to determine that there's something wrong here, that this is just happening. When mothers would go to the hospital, they'd see a neighbor there with another child, and another child all having leukemia. So they made the connection finally between industrial pollution and all of their illnesses. And my major professor worked along with her husband, who was a psychologist, on this case, and she brought me into it. So the whole time that I'm there working with her on surveys, collecting data, and all of that, I never thought about where I lived. And on returning home to work at the University of New Orleans, I was the only black and only female in my department, and I was one of 4 professors on the whole campus in 1974. Unbelievable racism existed on that campus. I managed to survive and get tenure and everything I was supposed to do there because this was home and I wanted to stay here. After returning home, I began to hear about Cancer Alley, and communities began calling me or texting me because I had really, through my research, begun working with Dr. Robert Bullock on identifying what we call the politics of pollution and recognizing that race was akin to pollution. If you were black in Louisiana, you were more likely to live in a community that was surrounded by polluting facilities. And not only that, we found out that there were 136 petrochemical plants and 6 refineries that were fence lined to communities up and down the Mississippi River corridor from Baton Rouge to Louisiana. Then something clicked. Well, this was happening in Niagara Falls, New York, in a place called Love Canal. That's what they named it. And then Cancer Alley was 10 times the size of Love Canal. I mean, like 85 miles, 132 petrochemical plants, 6 refineries, and all manner of pollution, including grain elevators, and it goes on and on and on. So I began to think about how I grew up, the way we felt about chemical plants, the amount of sickness and death and cancer that we saw in certain communities, never connecting that to pollution. So I left UNO. I went to Wake Forest and worked. And while I was at Wake Forest, I did a lot of research on what we call environmental justice. In fact, I think the first article ever written on pollution and race was written by me and Dr. Robert Bullock. It was called The Politics of Pollution. That was the first article ever written. And I began to do more work, going to DC, working with EPA, working with NIHS, talking to congressmen about pollution and the injustice that was connected to it always being where we live.
We are digital storyteller reporters
Victoria Cager,
Ray Morris and Kevon Porter right behind the camera, reporting live from Reserve, Louisiana, located in St. John the Baptist Parish. We are right in the heart of Cancer Alley. Together, we are right outside of Fifth Ward Elementary School, which is only 1,500 feet away from the Dinka plant, which emits chloroprene levels over 400 times the Environmental Protection Agency standard for long-time exposure.
the students at the school and the residents of this community have been adversely impacted by the toxic emissions from the Denka plant. According to the Human Rights Watch research, Cancer Alley has the highest risk of cancer from industrial air pollution in the United States, which is 7 times more than the national average. During the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, St. John the Baptist Parish had the highest death rate per capita in the United States.
There are only 33,000 residents living here. According to health experts, heart conditions and respiratory illnesses that residents already had worsened only because of COVID-19. We had the chance and opportunity to meet with Mr. Robert Taylor, Executive Director of Concerned Citizens of St. John the Baptist Parish.
Listen to his story.
When did you first notice that something was kind of off within your community?
It was brought to my attention by one of my young children. He started to complain about having chest pains when he smelled certain odors. Certain times of the day they would be outside playing, and they had to come inside. And that's when we noticed the odors, not knowing what it was all about. But that brought it to my attention.
Why do you think this situation kind of happened in the first place? Like, where do you think it came from?
Well, I think a number of things came together. The availability of the land and the resources here that were conducive to that type of industry. We had the river, we had 2 interstates on the east side, and we even had the I-49 corridor. So it's very conducive to that kind of manufacturing here because the transportation. And what made it a special situation for the local Black people is that that's the case. We were what they considered the low-hanging fruit. We were expendable.
How did that make you feel? I just want to expand on what you just said about the low-hanging fruit. I thought that was a really interesting way to describe how you or what you were going through and other community members. And I just wanted to know how it personally affected you, all of these circumstances, and how you felt.
Well, with regard to our situation, I first got that term from an industry spokesman. He was being questioned, and he was asked that question. And he said, well, they're the low-hanging fruit. When we look around for areas to try to locate our plant, they are aware of the effects it's going to have on the population. See? So, and one of the reasons that they choose us is because we're the ones that are less likely to be able to resist. And in general, nobody cares. That's come to me to be a realization after getting into this and realizing that this has been going on now for decades here. And as in the case with Fifth Ward Elementary, when I found out about that particular situation and we came together to try to redress that, the kind of reaction we got from the local government, the state, and the federal government. The fact that that issue, which brought us together 7 years ago, out of desperation in terms of what they were doing to young children from kindergarten to fifth grade, that situation happened, changed at all. And it was one of those people who made that remark about the low-hanging fruit, which was in response to why they choose this location.
Mm-hmm. Who did you talk to try to connect the problem? As in, like, do you think the people you were trying to talk to try to benefit the community or try to get the community to progress forward also consider the citizens of this community as low-hanging fruit?
Well, no, and yes. The number one issue for us was, since it was about this particular school, so we knew that the school board was directly in charge of that, and that they could have at any time relocated those children at least. This new school season started, and they sent those children right back into that environment.
As a parent, like, what was your initial reaction to like the situation? Like, you know, it's not just you have to think about. You have to think about, you know, your kids, your family.
Well, yeah, that is exactly what motivated me. I can remember it brought back the memories of coming up of my kids complaining about these and me not really realizing how serious that was. And this brought it on full on. If they were going to expose these children to that level of these things, EPA said that stuff would kill you. You know, they told us about the dangers of it. And then they also made us understand clearly that the effects that chloroprene had on adults, it was 5 times greater on children. And then I'm now told that children are being bussed into this school from all over the parish, Black children. And they are being exposed to 400 to 700 times what EPA says is a safe level. Well, that to me was the great motivator, not only for my children, but for whoever, anybody's children, for any human being. And that this was taking place with the full knowledge of the people in charge of this. St. John the Baptist Parish Council, the St. John the Baptist Parish School Board, the health department, and it went even further into the state. They were aware of it. And they were all right in line with the thought that these were disposable peoples, starting with our children.
We are now reporting live from Medinka plant. We want our fellow peers to take initiative and be brave as it comes to saving the environment. As youth leaders ourselves, we provide our peers with an overview of the research we have conducted throughout this internship, along with pictures and videos we took to give them a visual representation of the endangerment of marginalized and Black communities.
We can also support these youth engagers by showing them that having courage and knowledge is one of the most powerful skills you can possess. And in order to change the world, we must challenge ourselves to be the change we want to see. Again, I am Victoria Cager.
I'm Ray Morris.
And Kevon Porter behind the camera, and we thank you for watching.
Since Victoria and Rain's interview with Mr. Robert Taylor in the fall of 2023, on April 9th, 2024, the EPA announced it has taken historic action to cut petrochemical pollution in Louisiana's Cancer Alley. The new EPA regulations forced the Denka, formerly DuPont, neoprene facility in St. John Parish and other petrochemical plants to reduce chloroprene emissions by 80%.